Hey everyone, so I've decided after 8 months to start telling part 2 of the Reddit story time that I started before. I found a secret lab from the 70s. So I uploaded part 1 when I first started the channel, and I'm going to be uploading part 2. So if you haven't watched part 1 yet, go check it out before you start this. Okay, let's get into it. Staggered steps approached, each accompanied by a loud dragging sound. I sat under the desk in the enveloping darkness, breathing as slowly and quietly as my panicked body would allow. My clenched hands on my knees tightened as the metal bang from the door bar being pushed forward rang out inside of the black room I hidden from that hall. The dragging sound approached in my direction, no longer accompanied by steps due to the carpeting. The sound grew closer and closer towards me, and I braced myself when a heavy slam rang out directly in front of me. A few seconds later, the double doors clacked again, and I heard some footsteps in the hall. I sat on the carpeted floor of the chamber containing reels and cabinets, shivering in the complete darkness. Whatever had entered had either left discreetly or was now directly in front of me. And just when I was deliberating, crawling out, or making a run for it, my phone vibrated and lit up. As I removed my phone to quickly silence it, the dim light of the screen illuminated the space under the desk and just outside of the chair gap. The horrific face staring at me. There were two bulging eyes under a massive, bloody hole filled with teeth, and I was about to scream at the thing before realizing it was an upside-down human head. Something had dragged a man's corpse in here and slammed him down on the desk directly across from mine, on his back, so his head was hanging in my line of sight. I caught my breath, realizing whatever brought the body here was likely returning soon. I quickly stood and used my flashlight to grab a few handfuls of papers from random cabinets and desk drawers, and I used the small circular beam to scan the room. There were 8 track players and cassettes, Betamax players and tapes, reel-to-reel tape loops, and other storage devices that had existed in that era. Nothing beyond. I sneaked slowly past desks and lockers, past the paintings of gray-haired men in polyester suits on the fox wood wall paneling. Towards the goal now, I stared at in slight relief. Those 2 double doors on the opposite end of the room. The realization that there might be another exit brought the optimistic concept of escape back into my mind, and I made my way over in silent steps. I clenched my jaws as I opened the other set of doors as quietly as possible. Another hallway of roughly 100 doors stretched down in the dark length of the passage. It was as if the entire massive space was mirrored. This facility was absolutely gargantuan. I looked down the long hall with heavy steel doors, knowing that nightmarish things likely were inside of each of these chambers. I took a moment to shine my light on the papers I'd scavenged from the archives of the previous room, and I read, slack-jawed, in both amazing excitement and confusion. The papers I held seemed to be internal communications or of whatever organization this had once been. I scanned over many references to thermal ionizing radiation and experimentation, seemingly to prevent lethal radiation poisoning. I flipped through more pages reading about the threats, but nobody mentioned what the threat was except one page where the threat was referred to more specifically by name, by the letters USSR. The massive facility was a relic from the Cold War. Only one document had a company title, name, or anything identifying on those green and white banded, perforated pages. A little logo of 3 blocky letters under which was written Anti-Radiation Kinetics. I stood in the dark hall, beam of light barely illuminating the space, intrigue leading me over to the mirrored first chamber on the left. Unable to stop myself, I lifted the light to the plexiglass slit and peered in. Inside was a thin, naked woman with wet skin. She was hairless and had a sheen like the man in the first cell I'd looked into. My heart skipped a beat as I heard the metal doors push open in the previous room. Whatever had taken that corpse was heading towards my direction with the sound of the dragging body getting louder and closer. I removed my hiking boots to soften the sound of my steps, slinging them over my shoulder as I ran down that hallway in my thick socks, seeing glimpses of more horrific faces and forms. Something gray and heavily veined, with 4 large black orbs of spider eyes, stared at me, twitching. Another door's window showed a thin figure with a hairless, wrinkled head. That was one giant mouth, similar to a canine's. The scent of death built as I realized this hall had another open cell. One I now was dreading to realize was a food storage unit for feeding the abominations in this forgotten place. I only knew I had no desire to meet who or what was feeding them. I passed that room, noticing human limbs hacked and piled away from the rotted dead, slowing slightly to observe a few lab coats before exiting quietly, as possible, to the doors at the end. I pushed again, my heart spilled heavy, pounding from my chest to my throat as I realized in absolute horror. The doors were locked. I ran into the awful stench of the massive room stacked with bodies, realizing I was completely trapped. I scanned quickly and found a pile of pasty corpses, wet with decay, and jumped behind the bruised, bloody stack. I pressed my face hard into a hiking boot to filter the rancid stench that was beyond anything I could imagine. I turned my flashlight off, and this time, my cell phone, to await the footsteps and dragging over to the meat locker. I'm now trapped inside. Okay, so I know that was pretty short. It's about the same length as the last part, but I just wanted to let you know that if you still have not watched the first part, you should do that, because this story is definitely going to be over soon enough, and it's really picking up now, more than it was before. So go on over to my channel and check the first part out. I'll probably be uploading the third part soon. I probably said that last time, but this time I mean it. So go check that out. Link down in the description. I hope you guys enjoyed. See you next time.